Hey, this is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 168 of the Dreams and Drive podcast, and we are kicking off our month-long Driver Ed series. That means you're going to be hearing solo episodes from me. I'm going to be talking about different stages along our dream driving journey and using the themes park, reverse, neutral, and drive. So I hope that you guys are ready for this. So today's episode is called Stranded on the Side of the Highway, right? And you guys are probably wondering, like, what are you talking about, Raina? What is this going to be about? But if you are part of our Dreams and Drive newsletter, you probably already got the 2 emails leading up to this episode release. So you have a little bit more of a clue about what we're going to talk about today. If you're not already part of our Dreams and Drive online newsletter, The Keys, please just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join, and you can sign up to join there. All right. And one last thing, if you want to get Dreams and Drive gear, whether that be a crew neck sweatshirt, a hoodie, or a t-shirt, we are nearing the last days of our Dreams and Drive sale. So make sure you go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop today to get some gear. All right. I love to see when you guys are rocking stuff. It really makes me so happy. So please support the show, get some gear. I really appreciate it. Before we get into the episode, I also want to remind you that we are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I love it when you guys are sharing these episodes. So please, if you enjoyed this one, screenshot it, text it to somebody, share it on your Facebook, share it on your LinkedIn. Just share it with one person. I really do appreciate that. And if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, wherever you're listening, just hit subscribe so that you can get notifications every time we have a new episode. So I'm really excited to kick off this Driver's Ed series. I wanted to do something new. And for anyone who's been dream driving for a while, you know that experimentation is key. And sometimes you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone. For me, I love interviews. I could do them sleeping, basically. But I knew that I really need to work on my solo episode skills. And I've been getting so many requests from you guys to do more solo episodes. It's funny because those episodes, I think the one I had about, finding your internal GPS, all that stuff, you guys love those. So I'm like, you know what? If you love them, I should probably do more of them. That's what any smart content creator or any smart marketer would do. So to kick off the series, I wanted to start with a story. I think this story is pretty fitting to the show, the theme of the show and all that. So here it goes, right? So last week I was on my way to Newark. That's a place in New Jersey. I was on my way to Newark and I was driving on the interstate Route 280, right? And I'm driving and I hear this weird sound coming from my tire. And then I see the tire pressure light go off on my dashboard and I'm just like, what do I do? So I pull over to the shoulder, right? Because I need to check, number one, I need to check where or which tire is flat. And I need to assess the situation and figure out what I'm going to do. So I pull over to the side of the highway. I get out really quickly because, I don't want to get hit by any oncoming cars. I quickly check the driver's side and nothing was there, right? Those tires were good. As I walk over to the passenger side, I look down and I see that my front right passenger tire is flat. And, I was a little bit bummed because I was on my way to Newark. I had an agenda of things I had to do. And here this roadblock comes, right? A flat tire. And it's actually funny because about 2 or 3 weeks ago, before that, I had a tire leak. And so I had to go to the mechanic. And good thing I have tire insurance when I bought my car. Yeah, they convinced me into buying tire insurance, but it turned out to be all right because they changed that tire. Or I should say they replaced that tire for free. So I've already been through this whole ordeal of getting a new tire, right? And so I'm here thinking like, what do I do? And I start freaking out because I really don't know how to change a tire. And I've never been in this situation by myself before, right? Because this time it was really, really flat. The other times I've had like a flat tire, the tire pressure light came on, the tires were still drivable. So I had 3 options, right? And in the email that I sent out to our Dream Drivers in the Keys newsletter, I talked about the 3 options that I had. So number 1, the option was I could drive for about 2 miles eastward, get off on the nearest local exit, and then try to get to a gas station. That was option 1. Option 2 was that I could try to change a tire myself. Now, I've never changed a tire before, but hey, it couldn't be that hard, right? Option 3 was I could call roadside assistance and then wait for them to come to me or assist me or whatever it was going to be. Whatever that process was, I could just do that. So I'm here thinking through all the options, and number one sounds like it could be good, but what if the tire is flatter than I expected? What if the rim pops? What if I do more damage? So I said, hey, that is off the board, right? Number 3, roadside assistance. That probably makes the most sense, but I was on the shoulder of a busy highway during rush hour. I didn't know how long roadside assistance takes. I didn't even know how to access my roadside assistance. I knew that I had it with the car, but I had these stickers I was supposed to put in the car that I never did. So to me, roadside assistance just didn't seem immediate. I wanted it right now, right? So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change this freaking tire myself. Now, mind you, I don't know how to change tires. I don't know, I've seen it in theory. I've seen other people do it. So I was like, you know what? I could figure it out. It can't be that hard. So I'm thinking who can I call? Who can help me? So my dad was in New York. He doesn't have an iPhone. He wasn't going to help me. So I called the boo and I'm like, he's on the train and I'm FaceTiming him. I'm like, hey, can you walk me through how to change a tire? And he gave me this funny look, but he's all right, we could try. So he's walking me through what to do, what to get out the trunk, all this other stuff. But the connection was horrible. He kept freezing. I couldn't hear him. I realized I didn't have headphones. This was not working. So I just hung up and I gave up on that part of trying to figure it out. So I said, you know what? Let's just use your common sense. The one thing he did say was you want to make sure you loosen the bolts or whatever a little bit before you jack the tire up. So I'm there with the little thing trying to get the bolts or whatever those things are called unscrew just a little bit. It's not working. I'm struggling. I start to panic. I'm on the side of the highway. I start doubting myself. I'm like, why didn't I at least, try to drive the 2 miles? Maybe that would have been better. Or why didn't I just wait in the car and call roadside assistance instead of me trying to do it? And it was just so interesting to me. All the things I was telling myself during that moment, I started panicking. I started crying. I'm there by the tire, just trying to get this thing loose, and nothing was working. I tried then jacking the car up. I probably looked crazy on the side of 280, right? I'm probably in somebody's Snapchat right now with here's a crazy girl in some dashiki pants, on the highway looking like she's struggling. While this is going on, I see something flash out the corner of my eye. And then I look in front of me and I see that there's a white Toyota Camry that pulled up in front of me, and the door opens and this guy steps out and he's walking towards me. And at this point, I'm like, oh my gosh. So he starts walking towards me and I'm so happy at this moment because throughout my whole panicking, I was just thinking why hasn't anyone pulled over to try to help me? And isn't that crazy that I thought that somebody should pull over and help me just because I needed the help? Why am I here struggling by myself? I was really starting to feel sorry for myself, right? I'm like, there's no more decent people in the world. But it wasn't their responsibility to help me, right? They don't know who I was. I didn't know who they were. There's a lot of things that factor into it. But anyway, so this guy comes over and the first thing he says to me is, hey, what's your name? Do you have a spare tire? I'm like, yeah, I do. It's in the trunk. And he's like, all right, I'm going to help you. So then I tell him my name and he tells me his name. He says his name is Stanley. And then he's like, you know what? No, brother Stanley. Then he said to me, do you go to church? Right? And I didn't. I was like, I used to, but I don't really as much. So, are you spiritual? All this stuff. In that moment of panic, there was a sign. There was somebody who came to help. And I really appreciated that. So anyway, he's there trying to walk me through stuff. And then, me, I'm very inquisitive. I started talking to him. I said, we're talking about church. He told me that he was a born again Christian. And he said that something happened to him that changed his life. He said that God spoke to him. And at this point, I was so intrigued. I was like, oh my God, God spoke to you? And I said, what was your situation? Why did you find Christ again? And so he kind of hesitated a bit. He's like, it's a long story. It's a long story. And then at that point, my phone started blowing up, right? The boo's calling me back to make sure that, I'm all right. My sister's calling me because she was trying to come to my house because this day was my dad's birthday. People were calling me, so I wasn't able to finish the conversation with him. So by the time I get off the phone, the tires change, everything's good. And I'm so intrigued because I really wanted to know what was the story that changed his life and, made him go back to his faith or whatever. And all I knew from the story was that he said it had something to do with his brother-in-law and being in a bad situation and then God speaking to him directly. But, I can't just stop him. We're on the side of the road. So I just say, thank you so much, Brother Stanley. And as he walks away, he's like, Jesus loves you. And he drives away. I get in my car and I end up just going home. I don't even go, where I said I was going to go. And one thing that I want to add about this decision that I made was it probably wasn't the best decision, right? Like I really was taking a chance by letting a stranger help me. This guy did not have to have the best of intentions. He could have easily swindled me or whatever it was. There's a lot of things that could have happened. One of my listeners, Dominique, did respond to me with an email that really made sense, right? As a female with car issues on the side of the road, I could have been a easy target, and AAA or roadside assistance would probably be the best decision. So I want to let you guys know that this situation could have been bad, but I'm just telling you the truth of how it played out. One of the things to keep in mind is that it was daytime. It was a busy highway. So, hopefully he wasn't going to knock me out and drag me into his car and whatever, take me away. But that's just a disclaimer that I want to let everyone know that you definitely should think about the ways that whatever your situation could go wrong, the ways that it could go wrong, because this could have been bad. But I made sure that somebody was on the phone with me during it, and we never know. And the whole time I couldn't help but think, I wonder what his story was. I really, really wonder. It's just one of those things that he seems so he just seemed so resolute in whatever his faith was and just how much it mattered to him. And I was just happy, number one, that there was somebody good that wanted to come and help a sister on the side of the road who needed some help, right? He didn't have to. I didn't ask him where he was going. I didn't ask him, he didn't ask me for any money. He didn't ask me for anything. He just told me his name and was starting to tell me his story. And I'm really appreciative of that. And then going back home, there were so many things that came to mind for me. There were so many things that I was thinking about, and I was just trying to relate it to my own life, just, say to myself, what does this mean? Because I think through every experience we have, there's always learnings we can take away. The first thing that came to mind was I should know how to change a flat tire. I think that's one of the basics of driving, right? They don't teach it to you in driver's ed. I know not, at least in the one I did, but I think just when driving, you really should know the basics, especially if this could help you in a life or death situation, right? Let's say I was by myself in the woods and this happened and I didn't have a Brother Stanley, or I didn't have anyone to FaceTime with, or I didn't have a YouTube to look at, or whatever it was. What would I have done? And it's funny because when I got the flat tire before, my coworkers were they were all men. They were like, Rainey, you should really practice how to change a flat tire. It's a really good skill to have. My dad has been telling me this for a long time. My mom has been telling me this, but I kept putting it off. I kept saying, you know what? Nah, I'll learn how to do it another time, or I'll watch a YouTube video. That's enough. Sometimes you have to get dirty and learn the skill yourself because that's going to help you. And it really, really, this situation made me really think about, I've been getting these flat tires and it's I didn't learn the lesson. And maybe next time there won't be anybody, there won't be a Brother Stanley to help me. And it just helped me put things into perspective. What things am I putting off? What things am I putting off because I think I'll have time to do it later? Or what things that are necessary for my growth, for my ability to be a better prepared dream driver am I putting off, right? And that's the whole thing about being prepared. If you're wanting to drive, if you want to become a driver, there are different responsibilities that you will have to make sure that you're handling. For example, I can't drive my car and not pay the car note, or I can't drive my car and not make sure that it's insured. There are different responsibilities. So we have to make sure that we're very, very prepared and that we are taking into account all the things that could possibly go wrong and making sure we have all the checks and balances in place. For example, my roadside assistance card should not have been lost. It should have been right there on the dashboard or in my glove compartment so that I could have easy access to it, because me not knowing where to find it was one of the reasons why I didn't call roadside assistance. I was stubborn. I was super, super stubborn. Something else that this situation made me realize is that in anything, things will go wrong, but you have to know how to assess the situation. And at the same time, you have to know how to choose what's going to be right. You have to make quick decisions sometimes. I could have spent a whole 30 minutes on the side of the road debating, because that is like me. I love to debate, right? I could have been debating. I could have been doing all this stuff and not actually making a decision. And in me making a decision, even if it turned out not to be the right one, at least I was moving forward and whatever happened was going to happen, right? Because I probably was on the side of the road for about like 15 minutes, 17, 20 minutes tops, but it could have been much, much longer. Something else that I'm thinking of is in situations as we're driving, it was my intention to get to Newark that day, but that's not what happened. And sometimes along our dream driving journeys, there will be obstacles and things will not always go right? Things will not always go right. And if we know that, and if we're prepared, and if we know that things will not always go right, but there is a way to come out of it, there's a way that we can solve those things. If those things do not go right, that's such a great perspective to have. I think a lot of us sometimes get stuck in park because we're constantly thinking about, this is not up my alley. This is outside of my comfort zone. What if things don't work out? What if this is this? Or what if that is that? You can drown yourself in what ifs. But what if you decided that you were going to swim instead? That the what ifs were in the water, but you were going to decide to swim through those what ifs and get to your shore. And then lastly, the last lesson that I learned was if help comes, accept it, right? Because along our dream driving journeys, we're going to be struggling, and sometimes there may be legitimate help that comes along, and we say no to it because we think, I got this. I could have easily said to the man, I didn't know if he could have been a psycho killer or whatever, right? But just something inside of me said, accept the help. And it also showed me that you never know what someone's story is. And I will never, ever know what that man's story is. But something happened to him that really changed his faith and his spirituality. And maybe that thing was something that made him a kinder person, seeing someone else in need and taking the time out of his day to help, right? Situations change us. Maybe he had his own testament, whatever it was that I wasn't able to learn that day. I knew that he had his story, and that was just so intriguing. I would love to find this brother Stanley and really learn about what was that transformational story for him. He was so intent on trying to tell me, but the phone calls just kept coming in and didn't happen. So, maybe one day I run into him again. All right, so that's that with the story. I want to end this episode talking to you about how I got out of park, and hopefully you can take away some lessons so that you can translate that to whatever part of the dream driving journey you are on. So if you are a long-time listener of Dreams and Drive, you know that in episode 2, I talked all about how to get started even when you don't feel like you're ready, right? I talked about how I launched the podcast, and I also talked about how I bought my car. Ironically, it was something that I was not pressured or pushed into. I'm somebody who takes a long time to make decisions. I try to rationalize. I try to create every single option. I try to do as much research as I can. But sometimes you really just have to make a decision and live with whatever the decision is. And my dad was a really big instrumental person to me. He was like, listen, we're going to the car dealer and you are walking out with a car. I already knew what I wanted, but I was just still hesitating. So if you want a little bit more in-depth story about that, go back to episode 2 and listen to it. And also, I think it'd be fun to listen to it if you've been a longtime fan of the show, because you can also just see where my mindset was 2 years ago compared to now. So let's talk about how I got out of park. If you're ever in a situation where you're stuck, you got a flat tire, there are things that you have to do or things that I would suggest you do that I think would really help you. So number 1, think about what is your goal? What is your goal? What's that thing that's really eating up inside of you? If you want to liken it to this situation, my goal was I need to get home. I need to get the car moving, right? What's the goal? Define it. Know what it is. Number 2, how bad do you want it? How bad do you really want what it is that you say you want? When I launched the podcast, or when I was thinking about launching the podcast, I was really genuinely tired of putting out content, interviewing people for other magazines, doing all this stuff, but not feeling like anybody saw it, not feeling like I was reaping the benefits of my hard work, or not feeling like I was impacting the people that I knew I could impact. So I really wanted it, right? And in the tire situation, I did not want to be on the side of the road. So I really wanted it bad. It was a necessity, right? And if I was on the side of the road too long, the cops would come and all this other stuff. So number 3 is, what are you going to put on the line in order to make this goal happen? And in launching the podcast, the thing that I said I would put on the line was my commitment, my dedication. It was something that I had never done before. I had always, I had Brand Maker series on RainaCampbell.com, but I wasn't really into it, or I wasn't really that committed. I was building it, but I wasn't committed to the long-term vision of it. It was just something that I was doing. But I told myself, if I'm able to commit, I know that I can meet these goals I have for this platform, this community. I am willing to do that. Number 4, what was I going to sacrifice in order to meet the goal? You got to know these things if you want to get out of park. And for me, I knew that I was going to have to sacrifice perfection. Because when you're launching something, you want it to be the best, right? You want it to be remarkable. You want it to be something people enjoy, and that, something that you can put on a pedestal or whatever. And those are all very good goals to have, but sometimes you have to sacrifice perfection, because the wanting to be perfection can mean you can never launch. And listen, editing is key. I'm a great editor, but if I had waited in order to know everything about podcasting in order to launch Dreams and Drive, we'd probably still be in the planning phases. And that's just real talk. It's real talk. Like, you have to really think about, what are you willing to do that's a little bit different from how you normally do things in order to get the goal that you say you really, really want. And number 5, how are you going to hold yourself accountable? If you want to get out of park, right? If you want to get out of park, you got to have some kind of accountability system going on. And for me, it was putting a date on it. I said January 1st, 2016, I am launching something. I put it out on Facebook. I made a landing page. I had people sign up. So I knew my personality was, if I told other people, I was going to have to deliver. So I put some checks and balances in place so that people knew that I was serious. I had a little small launch team. I had to do that in order to really make that goal serious, because a lot of times we can keep that idea of wanting to get out of park in our head and not tell anyone. And sometimes that can be a detriment to our ability to move forward. So listen, if you want to get out of park, get a buddy. Find a way to keep yourself accountable to this. Have checks and balances. Have a timestamp, a date, something. You really, really need it. And then number 6 is do the research. Not knowing how to change my flat tire, know the basics of what it takes to do whatever it is you want to do. If I want to drive a car, and I now know learning how to change my tire is going to be essential in order to be a very well-prepared driver. A lot of times we like the idea of driving. We don't like the idea of maintenance, which is key, right? We have to know how to check our oil. We have to know how to make sure different lights on our dashboard and what they need and all that stuff. So take the time to prepare for what it is that you want. A lot of us aren't doing that. And then we get in situations where we're stuck. We get in situations where we're literally stuck, like I was on the side of the highway. And I could have prevented that, right? Because if I had been confident, if I had done research, if I had practiced a little bit about what it takes to change a tire, I could have easily said, 1, 2, 3, change this tire, we out. And, take it to the dealer to get a replacement tire. And then the last thing, number 7, is you just gotta do it. As episode 20 guest Lori Swank said, and I always refer to this episode, you gotta jump and build your wings on the way down. A lot of us are waiting for a sign. A lot of us are waiting for the right time. The right time is now. It depends on whatever you're launching, right? You don't want to just say you're launching something and it's utter crap, but you know what I mean? Like, you have to just say, I'm going to do it, and be prepared with whatever happens, and you can respond to it. Like, for example, I made that decision to change a tire myself. It probably wasn't the best decision, but it was a decision. And look, help came and I learned a lesson from it, right? So I just think there's so much that we can do if we're just willing to think through these things. Know what you want. Really dwell on how bad you want it, what this goal means to you. Understand what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to put on the line. Know that you have to hold yourself accountable and do the research. And then last but not least, jump. Put it in reverse, back out the driveway, move it through neutral, and then get in drive and see where you go. And remember, if things don't work out, it's all right. You can always pivot. You can always put it in park, get your GPS out, get your map out, whatever, and start plotting again. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Our next episode is going to be all about marketing, right? Marketing 101, and I want to talk to you about the techniques that I use to help grow the Dreams and Drive empire to over 600,000 downloads in less than 3 years, right? I mean, it's a number I'm proud of. It may not be the biggest number, but I definitely think there are key marketing strategies that I use that I think you guys can all learn from in whatever type of dream driving journey you're on. Growth is always important, whether you want big growth, small growth, whatever. I think sales and marketing is something that we need to learn a little bit more about. So that will be the next episode in our Driver's Ed series. If you love this episode, please share it with a friend. Please show me some love. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I love going in and seeing what you guys are thinking, and also leave a rating. Make sure that you're subscribed wherever you're listening. And lastly, please make sure that you're following us on social. I'm always on the Instagram page. We are Dreams and Drive across the board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So come on, send us a tweet, send me a DM, leave a comment on a photo, do whatever you want to do, but show some love because, I appreciate it. And for all the people who are not on the Dreams and Drive newsletter, I'm going to be doing more of these stories. I'm experimenting. I'm showing you guys different parts of me. So please come on over and join. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. You can just put in your information there. And then you'll be signed up and you'll get the next week's newsletter when it comes out. All right. I appreciate y'all. This month is going to be so fun. Oh yeah, and I want to prep you. We will have one episode that will be an interview episode, but the next episode in our Driver's Ed series is going to be about the marketing, okay? All right, keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 169. Bye, guys.